This Choircast podcast is brought to you by Until at Dawn We Wait, Gender, Madness, Theology by Charlotte Dahlwood. This book is for anyone who's ever wondered what light the experience of being transgender or having a mental illness can shed on the Christian story about God and humanity. Until at Dawn We Wake is available now on Amazon and wherever books are sold.
Hey, heathens, you're listening to the Deadly Faith Podcast, where religion and crime collide. I'm Lacey.
And I'm Lola.
And this shit is shameful.
The mind that was in Jesus, that mind is in me.
Without me, life has no meaning.
Why would God tell you what I'm thinking and tell you what I've said to my wife or my husband when you're not around? It's because I'm the pastor of the church and I need to know.
This is the only place where you can see truth.
Bum, bum, bum.
Part two.
We're back to part two. And I let you on a big cliffhanger. The biggest of cliffhangers.
Let's finish out this story because I need to close a loop. I don't like having unfinished ends.
No, and there's a lot of unfinished ends with this story.
I have so many questions still.
So much.
I'm worried.
If you thought you loved Kathy Turkanian in the first part, just buckle up because you're going to love her even more. She's
excellent.
She's easy to love. But before we get into today's episode, let's bring you a message from one of our sponsors. So today's episode is brought to you by NordVPN. So listeners, we all love staying connected, but have you ever thought about keeping your online activities safe and private? That's where NordVPN comes in. So with NordVPN, you can browse the web securely and access content from around the world with no restrictions. Plus, for a limited time, you can save 72% off your subscription and get 3 extra months for free when you sign up using our special link that you can find down below in the show notes. You heard that right, 72% off with an extra 3 months for free. So imagine streaming your favorite shows without worrying about prying eyes or any weird geo blocks. NordVPN makes it easy. So what are you waiting for? Also, it keeps you safe and secure if you're out in a coffee shop and you're surfing the web. You can make sure that nobody's going to hack into your computer or steal your login information. Get yourself NordVPN and stay secure and safe while you're online. Visit our link in the show notes and take control of your online privacy today. That's 72% off plus 3 extra months for free. And you can have peace of mind. Stay safe, stay private, and enjoy your browsing. Now, let's get on to the show. All right, so today's episode, we're going to jump off with some trigger warnings. The trigger warnings are, the same as they were yesterday. We've got murder. It is a little bit...
Yesterday?
I mean, a week ago. We recorded it yesterday. Sorry, guys. Just kidding. They're like, you made me wait 7 days, Lacey. Not a day. Anyways, same trigger warnings as last week. Murder, it does get a little graphic, especially in today's episode. And there is sexual assault. So we're going to be talking about that. So if any of those are too hard for you guys, just skip it. And we'll see you guys in the next show.
Can we ever have a crime that's just not sexually motivated? That would be really nice for me.
That'd be great. We need to do some embezzlements. Just some lighthearted crime.
It's just the ones that I've done about fraud and everything end up also having some sort of NXIVM, He ended up being super pervy and gross, and it was a sex cult thing. And Steve and Melanie
had
Muncie,
the suspicious death.
Them. Yep. I can't talk about that.
Yep.
Whatever. I can't get into that.
Allegedly for educational purposes only. Moving on. Okay, so let's do a little synopsis of last week's case. So part 1, Kathy Turkanian gives up her daughter for adoption. Years and years, decades later, she finds out that her daughter is missing. And there is a body that has been found that could possibly be her daughter's body. So they're asking for a DNA test. Gives the DNA test. She goes on this long journey of trying to figure out who her daughter was, who she was adopted by, and what her life was like. Ends up, long story short, it was not her body. It was not her daughter's body. The DNA sample came back as a negative match. And her adoptive father, Dennis Bowman, was the most likely culprit with a very long history of pretty serious crimes and jail time. So we left off on part 1 with Dennis Bowman getting arrested But he was not arrested for what we all thought he'd be arrested for. It was not the, disappearance of Aundria Bowman. It was the murder of a different woman back in 1980. So we're going to talk about that woman. So she was a woman who lived in North Fork, Virginia, and her name was Kathleen Doyle. Her family said that she was a very independent and brave young woman who loved to travel and experience all that life had to offer. At the time of her death, she was around 25 years old with long, brown, beautiful hair. She had green eyes, and as Kathleen would say, that she was 4'11" and 3/4. She always added in the and 3/4. But also, that's like
Don't forget
super short.
Don't get it twisted.
5 whole inches shorter than me. That's a good chunk shorter. So 4'11".
Oh, Lacey and I are the same height too.
We are.
So,
yep, we are. So 4'11" and 3/4. I think that's cute. Kathleen went to college in Woodstock, Connecticut, and she had a desire to become a writer. She and her husband had married in December of 1979, and they lived in a small Cape Cod house in North Fork, Virginia. Now, her husband was in the Navy, and during the time of her murder, he was out on some kind of like training mission in the middle of the ocean. So while her husband was away, one of Kathleen's friends, Vivian, had come over to hang out for the evening. They drank some wine and just had kind of like a girls' night in.
Girls' night.
Mm-hmm.
Girls'
dinner.
Girls.
So Vivian ended up leaving Kathleen's around 9:30 p.m., but unfortunately, the next day when she tried to get a hold of Kathleen, she couldn't. And each time she tried to get a hold of her and Kathleen wasn't answering, she became increasingly worried.
Kathleen wasn't answering?
Yeah, Kathleen wasn't answering. So Vivian's getting more and more worried.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So Vivian talks to her husband and she's like, let's go check on Kathleen. Like, please just take me over there. So they drive over to Kathleen's house to check in on her. And they quickly notice when they go up to the door that the door's ajar, which was alarming. And as Vivian walked in, she noticed that the wine glasses were still sitting out from the night before. And she thought that this was odd because Kathleen was the type of person to kind of clean up like that the night before, not leave it for the next day. So that was like her first red flag kind of the situation. But she continued to walk through the house, yelling for Kathleen, trying to get her attention, trying to get a response back, but not getting anything. And she gets to Kathleen's bedroom, and when she opens the door, she finds Kathleen dead on the floor. She quickly runs out of the room, and she's freaking out. Her husband's freaking out, and they pick up the phone, and they dial 911. But when the operator answers, they ask them, like, what's your emergency? And Vivian is frantically telling them that they need help and where they're located. But on the other end, the operators just keep saying, hello, what's your emergency? Hello, are you there? The whole time, their operator could not hear them, but they could hear the operator.
Why? What?
So then they're like freaking out, like, what the fuck is wrong with this phone? So they realize something's wrong with the phone. So they leave and they go to the neighbor's house and use the neighbor's phone and got a hold of the operator. So the police arrived and found that the mattress had been pushed off the box springs and Kathleen was laying on the floor naked and deceased. It was evident that she had been sexually assaulted, and later on the autopsy report would reveal that her cause of death was mechanical asphyxiation and she was for sure sexually assaulted. Kathleen had many bruises covering her body, along with multiple stab wounds to her chest and her abdomen. She also had a burn mark on her right cheek that looked very similar to like a cigarette burn. But as the investigators started to look around the house, they ended up finding a Lincoln log. Do you know what those are?
Yes. What?
They found a Lincoln log, very random. They found a Lincoln log in her bathroom trash that was burned on one end. When they examined it, it found to be a match to the burn mark on Kathleen's face. So this person had lit this Lincoln log on fire and fucking burned her with it.
What is the point here? And
torture. That's like the only thing I can think of is like, you are so fucking sadistic. It's torture.
I'm sorry. Is the Lincoln log already in the house?
No, that's what's even more weird.
They brought it with them?
Was not in the house. She had no kids. There was not a set of Lincoln logs anywhere to be found. Meaning the Lincoln log had to have been in this person's fucking pocket or something. Weird as fuck, right?
So premeditated.
Absolutely.
Unless we just carried Lincoln logs around for good luck.
Yeah.
Lincoln log, sorry.
Not that kind, though.
That's so shitty. What the fuck?
Now, to the investigators, all of these wounds show that the attacker was very comfortable with intense and brutal violence. Now, as they continued to search the home, they discovered that the reason the operator couldn't hear Vivian when she called 911 was because the mouthpiece of the phone had been taken out. So it's a landline. So it's like a phone you pick up that's got the, stretchy cord attached.
Yeah.
It's attached to the wall. And so they took off the, you can unscrew where you speak into, you unscrew the mouthpiece, little cover, and then they had taken out the mouthpiece internals and then screwed it back on so that it looked like a functioning phone.
Yeah.
But no, there was nothing to collect your sound waves and transmit to the other caller.
I've heard of cutting the phone line, but never this is
never.
This is the next step.
You were determined to not let anybody call out when they found the body.
So intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Or not only that, it gives you this false sense of hope. I got a hold of 911, if I did need to call.
Can you imagine after seeing a dead body?
Yeah.
And then you're calling 911 and they're like, hello?
Hello?
And you're like, I'm here.
I can't hear
and they're
you.
like, hello? Is anyone there?
See, that's a nightmare. Mm-mm.
So the only thing I can think of is it was their way of trying to give them even more time to get away. So it was delaying the phone call to 911.
I'm sure it was effective. So yeah.
They swept the home again after this, and they found pretty much no fingerprints. The only ones they did find belonged to either Kathleen, Vivian, or her husband.
Mm-hmm.
And her husband's alibi was checked out, and it was confirmed that he was on a ship with the Navy in the middle of the ocean. So he was nowhere to be found. Or not nowhere to be found. He was nowhere near the crime scene. Now, after that, they checked on the neighbors and the close friends of the family. They checked on all of their alibis. And after that, they literally had no leads. They had no idea who would do this. And it really did just seem like a random attacker that had no connection to Kathleen. And so the case went cold. And it stayed cold for decades. Now, what this case desperately needed, though, was an advancement in science because they had DNA. They had collected DNA as part of the rape kit and on the comforter. There had been semen left on the comforter. Now, thankfully, the comforter had been preserved all those years. So what they needed was advancements in science to test the DNA and to get some kind of match. Now, I guess there wasn't enough to actually do a DNA match thing. So they ended up using it when familial DNA came out. So familial DNA will it will help you map the person's DNA and give you pretty much their family tree. And
you have to narrow it down from there, though. It's a broad.
Yes.
It'll take the pool down from trillions to
couple hundred or
couple
maybe
hundred, maybe 1,000.
15, 20, 30, depending on the family tree, depending on how much of the family has submitted their DNA. There's a lot of variables that comes into it, but
yeah,
very, very, it's so interesting. We've talked about it multiple times on this show. It was what was used to identify Lori's Ruff's true identity. Yeah.
Listen, our curiosity consultants. If you're out there. And you have information, you study this kind of ththing, we'd love to talk with you.
Genetic genealogy. Let us know because it's so fucking interesting.
Yeah.
Love it. So after that, a familial DNA came out. They ended up making a male DNA profile from the sample. And with the familial DNA, they were able to compile a list of 31 people. That's not very many. So it was either 31 people who either committed the crime or they were related to the person who committed the crime. Now, unfortunately, these people were located all across the U.S. and the agent that was assigned to this cold case wasn't exactly sure how he was going to go about collecting these people's DNA. So the first thing he did was just a preliminary search on every single one of these people. And he just searched their background. Do they have a criminal history? Which one of these jumps out at me? He gets down to the 31st name. He does a background check and he's like, holy shit.
No. It can't be this perfect.
This person looks like they could be a good suspect because he has a pretty decent criminal history. And that was Dennis Bowman.
Fucking Dennis!
Dead ass!
We got him!
Oh, just when I tell you the stars align, They align. This bitch is so cool.
Somebody cue the cops theme song right now.
Right. Mm-hmm. So after the investigator looked up Dennis, his arrest record, he quickly realized that he was probably the number one suspect out of those 31 people. So now, in another one of those moments, like I said, where all the stars align in the universe to make everything just come together perfectly. The first week of November in 2019, the Regional Homicide Investigators Conference was held in North Fork, Virginia. So this investigator decided, I'm going to attend. I'm going to go to it. And at the conference, he ended up meeting with an investigator from Michigan, and he tells him about the case that he's working on and the list of 31 people. He then tells him that he has a really strong suspect that lives in Michigan. And the Michigan investigator then asked him what the guy's name was. And the North Fork, Virginia investigator responded with Dennis Bowman. The Michigan investigator was shocked. He knew Dennis very well, actually, because he was the same investigator that was currently looking into the missing persons case for Aundria fucking Bowman.
Literally, the stars are aligning. I thought you were just like blowing smoke a little bit.
I'm not blowing smoke. That's the only way I can.
Why is this so perfect?
Because the stars in the universe felt Kathy Turkania's anger, and they said, we have to avenge this mother's anger.
The cosmos have conjured this beautiful resolution for us.
Now, he told the North Fork, Virginia investigator that he was actually working on Andrea's missing persons case. And it just so happens to be that guy's adopted daughter. And there's a lot of talk that he's responsible for her going missing, if not possibly for her death. So he told this investigator, he's like, he's probably your guy.
Man.
And I'd put money on it. He's probably your guy. So they can't just go arrest Dennis at this point because they've got to cross their T's and dot their I's. The first thing they need to prove is whether Dennis was or wasn't in North Fork, Virginia during the time of the murder. And in May of 1980, it was his attempted kidnapping and murder of the teenager, or attempted kidnapping and sexual assault of the teenager. Yeah. And then in September of 1980 was Kathleen's murder case. So at first, the investigators thought that Dennis could be in jail during this time and didn't think that he would be released for such strong charges being brought against him.
You wouldn't think, but...
You wouldn't think. So they started to look at like old court records and transcripts and things like that. And when they were going through the transcripts, they found at a hearing, Dennis's lawyer had said that Dennis wasn't at the hearing because he had been put on training for the Navy in North Fork, Virginia. And when he looked at the date for that hearing that was on that document, it was dated September 16th, 1980. Meaning he was in North Fork, Virginia at the time of Kathleen Doyle's murder.
Got him.
He fucking crossed. Okay, but they don't let it stop there. Now they go to the DNA. Now we got to match your DNA.
Of course, yeah.
So they get the sample from the bedspread, and the police, remember, they have had lines of communication between Dennis Bowman and the officers. Because of the harassment that Kathy Turkanian had been doing. So on one of those times. So on one of those times, they just lure Dennis in and are like,
you want some coffee?
Oh, and that motherfucker, Dennis just drank. He drank his water, drank his coffee, he drank everything the whole couple hours he was there. So the minute he left, they went and put it in a bag and they sent it off for testing.
I love life.
And guess what?
I have hope.
I know, right? And it came back.
Perfect match.
Perfect fucking match.
Yeah.
They have this motherfucker dead to rights. You ain't getting out of this. We know you were in North Fork, Virginia. We have proof you were in North Fork, Virginia. And your DNA matches.
They did it all.
What lie are you going to tell? What are you going to try to spin?
You can't spin this shit.
Can't spin this shit. We got science on our side,
Is he going to spin the shit?
Oh,
I'm nervous.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, since they have him dead to rights with the Kathleen Doyle case, but they're not going to stop there. They're like, we got you on this one, but we're not going to let that be the end of it.
Let's bag the Swede. Sorry.
Exactly. So they decide that they're going to leverage their position with Dennis and get him to confess to Andrea's missing persons case. Because they have no evidence, but they're like, we know you fucking did something, bitch. So speak up. But they're very strategic.
And this is a big fish to fry.
At first, Dennis tries to be like, I had nothing to do with this. Are you kidding me? When it comes to the Kathleen Doyle case. But once they finally like show him the evidence, like, you want to try that again? He was like, okay, fine. I did it. And we'll get into more of that in just a minute. But after multiple interrogations and building a lot of rapport between the investigator and Dennis, he finally confesses with the Kathleen Doyle case. Okay, not about Aundria, but they got him to confess about the Kathleen Doyle case. Well, okay, sort of. Now, at first, Dennis claims that he got off the ship and he went to a bar and he got plastered. I mean, shit fucking faced. And then he said after he left the bar, he was walking around and he walked by Kathleen's house. And at first, he just kind of like decided, I'm just going to rob this person in this house. So he goes through a window. But when he gets in, Kathleen sees him. She screams and then they struggle a little bit. Well, apparently he had a knife in his hand from coming through the window. I guess he like cut the screen or something. And he has the knife in his hand. And when they were struggling, she grabbed his arm and accidentally made him stab her.
Yeah, that's not a real line of events. The series of reality, sure. That's not happening.
Every red flag is going off like, bullshit.
And I'm sorry, how did your semen... So
and
you're
says,
like into dead bodies? Is that what's happening?
Well, no, because he says he only stabbed her once and it was her fault. He's blaming it on her. She made me stab her on accident through the struggle. Of course. But then she set up and he got off and he's like, ma'am, I'm leaving. And when I left there, he says, she was alive.
Oh.
And they're like, okay. Get fucking for real. You
Give
were
us
not,
more
she was not alive. So they go back and forth. They go back and forth for a while. And he's very adamant. I did not sexually assault her. I did not beat her. I did not this. I did not that. And they're like, it doesn't match the crime scene. Nothing matches. She was stabbed multiple times. She had bruises. She was sexually assaulted. She was burned on her face. And he was like, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. And he is adamant. And they're like, but you said you were plastered drunk. He goes, but I know I only stabbed her once. And then they ask him about something else. And he's like, but I don't remember. I was plastered. And they're like, then how do you know for sure you only stabbed her once?
That was just once, yeah.
He was just trying to spin it. So my opinion, and I'm assuming the opinion of a lot of people, is he went in with the intention to rape this woman and to hurt her. And he ended up murdering her. Whether that was his intention or not before he went in, who knows? Could be, could not. My guess is probably it was his intention to murder her.
Yeah, I think he was trying to... I don't think he meant to murder her at this point. I'm not convinced of that. I think he was trying to subdue her. And then he lost it.
The reason that I say I think he intended to murder her is because he had the Lincoln log and he was torturing her.
I forgot about the Lincoln log. I can't forget the link. It was intentional.
He was torturing her. So the torture factor of this is what makes me think it was intentional for him to murder her.
But he didn't know her, right?
He didn't even live in North Fork, Virginia.
That's so random.
I couldn't find any connection, but him and Kathleen Doyle's husband are both in the Navy. Now, whether they knew each other or not,
that's kind of, yes.
I don't know. But he was there for a training. And she lived in Cape Cod, I guess close to the beach. So it might have just been prime area. I don't know. We don't have a whole lot of answers, but what we do know is he fucking did it. And they have him dead to rights. They decide that they're going to use Brenda. Okay. Brenda is going to be the little string that they pull to try to get him to confess when it comes to Aundria.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because you know what Brenda did during this whole thing?
What?
She stayed. She stayed.
Oh, well, yeah.
She denied that he did this. She was like, we're going to get a good lawyer. He didn't do this. But then they present her with all of the facts. And she still stays. She knows everything. She still stays.
I mean, this isn't ignorance. This is chosen stupidity.
Exactly. That's why I was saying the more we get through the second part, you're going to understand why my empathy for her and my grace for her is non-existent.
I lit a candle for her. Shut the fuck up, Brenda.
Shut the fuck up, Brenda. Now, Brenda is actually Dennis's only lifeline to the outside world when it comes to like outside jail.
Mm-hmm.
And even though she knows that he's committed this murder, they've shown her the evidence, like I said, she's still sticking by his side. Now, does this make sense to me, to you, to anybody? No, absolutely not. It doesn't. But it does work in our favor because the cops decide to use Brenda as their leverage. And they want to get more answers when it comes to Aundria. So they tell Dennis that if he is willing to confess and tell them where Aundria's body is, they will work on letting him stay in Michigan to serve out his sentence instead of having to go back to Virginia. That way he still has a connection to Brenda and can have in-person visitation.
Oh my God.
Okay. So at first, Dennis is like, I'd love to help you out, man. Love to be your pal in this, but I can't because I didn't do shit. And
Dennis.
He's ready to die on that hill forever. Even his family is like, you can't confess to anything you didn't do. No, you can't. Like, it's not going to work. How? You didn't do anything. I'm like, he just confessed to murdering somebody. Like, he's a murderer. And you're over here like, he would never. No. And he even says in a jailhouse phone call, he's like, I told them, you don't murder family. You don't understand. You just don't murder family.
Oh, you murder strangers, but not I draw the line. I'm an ethical killer.
I murdered that chick. I don't even know her name, but family? Oh, how dare you?
He said, I believe in ethical killing.
What? That's seriously basically what he's saying. Now, after a while, Dennis is like still sticking strong to this. And then all of a sudden, like one day, he calls the prosecutors and he requests a face-to-face meeting with Brenda. Not over the phone, not through a jail service screen, face-to-face in a room, which is not something that they do.
I was going to say, is that even allowed?
No, but they pulled some strings and they made some special, exceptions for this. And right before Dennis walks in the room to wait for Brenda, he looks at the prosecutors and he says, you better have your cameras rolling. And then walks in.
Fucking hell.
So he walks in, he sits on the couch and he waits for Brenda. Brenda walks in and she sits down. And after a few minutes of him like, I'm a bad guy, I've done some bad things, blah, 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 that same shit, he tells her, Aundria's dead. Now, Brenda's like just standing there in shock or sitting there in shock, like, what? And he said that when he went home that day, he caught Aundria in their room stealing the money and trying to run away. When he asked her what she was going to do and what she was doing, like in the room, she said she was leaving, and he told her, no, you're not. You're not leaving. And she said, yes, I am. And she said, if you don't let me, then I'm going to tell everybody that you molested me again. And that's when he got mad and he hit her and she fell down the stairs and died.
What?
I love your face. If you guys can't see it, but her face went from like listening to like confusion in a matter of like 0.2 seconds. And I love that because that was mine. I looked at the screen when I read that or when I heard that. I went,
so in my mind,
bullshit.
I tried to like calculate. I'm thinking like, those grand staircases, that like if you're thrown over the banister, you could definitely die. But then I'm like, this is they're probably doing okay financially, but like a kind of middle class family is what I gather from this.
Absolutely.
So like I'm thinking carpeted stairs, like maybe 10 stairs, to the top floor.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You'd get a broken bone, maybe.
Yeah, he said she broke her neck, died right then. He said he checked her pulse.
How hard you throw her, man?
Right.
Push her throw.
Yeah.
Okay, proceed.
Yeah, so, right, she says she's dead. And once he finds out that she's dead, he decided that out of fear, he's not going to go back to jail and lose his family. He's like, I can't do that. So he took Aundria's body to the back shed and hid it. And then he took a suitcase and her purple jacket and burned them in a barrel in the backyard. Now, before the belongings had even finished burning, he was on the phone with 911 to report her as missing. Now, because Dennis had claimed that she stole his money, in this missing persons report, Aundria was listed as the suspect and Dennis was listed as the victim, and there was a warrant out for her arrest for theft. Mind you, he just murdered her, and she was dead in the shed this entire time.
I hate that rhymed. And also, this, if I didn't know his character before, it's clear now.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to be very honest.
She's a child. Anyway.
I do not believe the majority of what he said.
Does anyone?
How this murder happened. I believe that he murdered her.
Well, yeah.
I do not believe it was an accident. And I do believe that he sexually assaulted her. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I believe that was something that was prevalent and happening. And he came home and tried to molest her again. And she fought back. And he got mad. And he killed her. She was not planning on leaving. She was not trying to run away. He had to go find her items in order to burn them. You cannot tell me that she was getting ready to leave. I do not believe it. That is all my opinion. That was not stated in the documentary or anything. But that's just my opinion. He went up there, get his rocks off because he could, because his wife was at work. And she fought back and he killed her. Now, after a couple days, he said he found a cardboard barrel and tried to stuff Aundria's remains inside of it. Unfortunately, though, she wouldn't fit. And so he then said that he cut off her legs and put her inside. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
The next day, the neighbors put out their trash, so he rolled the barrel out and put it beside their trash. And within a few hours, the garbage truck came by and picked it all up, and Aundria was gone.
Oh, my God.
Now, mind you, he's literally telling this all to Brenda's fucking face, including that I tried to stuff her under barrel. She didn't fit, so I had to cut her fucking legs off.
Yeah, and what is Brenda doing? Or what is her, like...
Bawling. She's bawling, and she's telling him, stop confessing to something you didn't do.
Baby girl,
come here.
Are you dumb? Are you certifiable? Honey, it's okay to go away from it.
Yeah.
She's gotta know. I'm going to make an assumption that Brenda has been raped by Dennis before. She's been coerced. She's been hit. She's been yelled at,
Yep. That is my opinion too. That is not fact. That is allegedly, that is our opinion.
Come on, Brenda. It's okay. We can acknowledge that the trauma did happen and that he is a bad person and he's capable of these things and he did these things.
Yeah.
Brenda.
Yeah.
God.
But guess what? She stays.
Yeah, she fucking stayed.
I'm like, God damn it, Brenda. Yeah, she stays. And in a phone call to him, she actually says, quote, I can only tell you what I was told that day and have believed in for all these years. I got my Philippians 4:13 in one corner and I got Isaiah 41:10 at the bottom. You're not going to take my love away from me or anything or my God. And this is the way I am. If you don't like it, oh well.
I like how you did her voice. Whenever you do the voice of a female you don't like, you get kind of like nasally about it.
Absolutely. She deserves more of a nasal.
Okay.
She really does. And if you don't know, Philippians 4:13 is the age-old, like, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Great verse. You want to use that to motivate you? Great. Just not in this situation, please. Okay.
Yeah.
And then Isaiah 41:10 says, fear not, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and I will help you and I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Again, a great verse.
Emphasis on the righteous.
Just not in this situation.
Not the vibe.
Not the vibe. Now, at this point, the detectives are desperate to find Aundria's body. No one believes that he put her in a barrel and put her out by the trash can. For one, that's just a real huge risk you're taking. Just sticking a dead body in a barrel out by the side of the road. They're like, no way. He's not going to take that kind of risk. You kidding me? So they're not believing it. And so they still are trying to get Dennis to like, give us more. So in some of the letters that Dennis wrote to Brenda between December 2019 and early 2020, Dennis ends up confessing to a completely different way of disposing Aundria's remains. I think Brenda was really requesting, like, tell me where her body is. Like, I don't think you put her out by the road. Nobody believes you put her out by the road. Like, please tell me. And so in these letters, this is kind of like a handful of different letters. It's all being kind of moshed together. But he says, dearest love, I want you to know something between you and me, just us. Also, I'm like, bitch, this is a fucking jailhouse letter. It's not just between you and us, you idiot.
They monitored this.
Right. People are dumb. Aundria did fall. She did break her neck and I did hide her body. But I did not throw her body in the trash. I placed her body in a proper grave next to a private graveyard. She was wearing jeans and her favorite sweater. She has a gold necklace with a heart and a cross on it. I wrapped her in a clean white sheet and tied it like a mummy. I also wrapped her hands and feet with a red ribbon. She liked that color. Then I placed her in a new 6x8 silver tarp and sprinkled cedar chips, cloves, and pieces of cinnamon between her and the tarp, then filled in the grave and watered down the dirt. 2 weeks later, you could almost see where she was. 2 months later, you couldn't. In 30 years, I have passed her more than 100 times. I am sure she is with God. You say you don't know the truth, but the truth is I love you. I love Aundria. You've known me for 50 years, and you say you don't know me anymore. Well, then you're going to have to make up your mind. I will never forget you. I have you forever carved in my heart. End quote. Dennis. So. I wish you could see her face.
I'm squinting.
She is giving the death eyes.
Suspect.
It is are you fucking kidding me?
It's
the
cinnamon and cloves for me.
Seriously.
Actually, it was more than that. Let's go way back to the ribbon.
And when you find out how she's really buried, this could be the furthest from the truth. I tell you.
So you just gave me a spoiler. Thank God they did find her body.
I told you from the beginning, we get all of our answers.
I am
the whole time
worried. I've been so worried that she was actually disposed at like a dump and like burned, and we never find her remains to lay her to rest.
I told you the beginning of part 1. I will answer all of your questions by the time we get to end of part 2. You will have
keep
all
going,
circles will end up closing.
The hunger.
Yep. Now, the detectives, they did take these letters very seriously, and they searched all the graveyards and even beside them by using ground-penetrating radar. Unfortunately, though, they didn't find any remains. By this point in the investigation, Dennis had already told like 3 to 4 different stories, and when he was confronted by investigators, he just told them, yeah, I've told you different stories, and I'm not telling you which one's true or where Aundria's body's buried. So, nobody pointed this out, but I picked up on it. I was like, well, he did say buried. So we know she's buried. Like, he said buried.
True.
So I'm gonna hold on to that little nugget of information.
Yeah.
So the detectives then put more pressure on Brenda to get Dennis to tell her where Aundria's remains were. They went to Brenda and told her that she deserved this. Dennis had put her through so much, and she deserved to know where her daughter's body was and for her daughter to be brought home. They also told her that prosecutors refused to press charges. They said, we don't have a body. We can't press charges. We need a body. He needs to tell us where the body is, or I'm not pressing any charges, meaning he's going to go right back to Virginia to serve out his sentence there.
Shit.
Now, Brenda could not have that. She wanted to maintain that connection with Dennis, so she begged him over and over and over again to tell her where Aundria was. She would cry and be in utter tears on the phone, begging him to tell her where he'd buried her body. And Dennis liked having this control, and I think he desperately didn't want Brenda to find out exactly how he disposed of Aundria, so that's why he concocted that elaborate burial story in order to try to just like make her feel better, but also
this really
while allowing
is his last thread of control, though. Her.
Yeah. And he's just trying to like you said, maintain that control and attempt to hold on to Brenda and Brenda's affection for him. But Brenda kept asking. And finally, one day, while they were talking on the phone, Dennis told Brenda that he would tell her exactly where Aundria's body was and that it was very close. As they sat on the phone in silence for a few moments, Dennis finally said, Aundria is buried in our backyard. Brenda starts crying and is also highly confused because this is not the house that they lived in when Aundria went missing.
Which house?
But Dennis was being very adamant that Brenda was there in the backyard of the home that they currently lived in. He said that while they were at the old house, he had dug a hole and buried the barrel. But then when they moved, he went back and dug it up and took it to the new home where he dug another hole and buried it in the backyard at the new house.
This is another example of control.
Mm-hmm.
He had to control even
in death.
Even her.
Even in death.
Yeah.
Now, just like every other claim, the investigators took this one very seriously, and they got a bulldozer and their anthropology team and went out to the Bowman's home to investigate. As the bulldozer started pulling back thin layers of dirt, it wasn't long until the claw of the bulldozer pulled up the metal ring to the cardboard barrel. After a little bit more digging, they discovered Aundria's remains. Now, this whole time that they are digging up their backyard and discovering Aundria's remains, Brenda is in the fucking house. She ends up coming outside, and they tell her that they have found remains in her backyard, and she just stands there crying, unable to say anything. Somebody ends up walking her back to the house, and all she can say to this person at this point is, quote, "He didn't lie to me. At least this time he didn't lie to me." What? That's what you have to say?
That's how deep in it she is.
It's
just
deep.
sad. It's just sad.
You can't even see her anymore. She's so deep. She's gone. She's consumed. All consumed. Now, Aundria's remains were found in 4 different plastic bags inside the barrel. In one of the trash bags, they found a huge bag full of dirty diapers. They assumed that this was his attempt to try to mask the smell of death while Aundria's body was decomposing, because by the time he got her into the barrel, it had already been a couple days.
Yeah.
So no, it was not cinnamon and cloves and cedar chips. It was fucking shit. And a ton of it. Now, in one of the bags of trash, they discovered a York peppermint patty, and on the side of it, the date marked 1989, marking her time of death. This one piece of trash confirmed that Aundria's body had never, or Aundria herself had never been missing, but yet she had been dead and been buried the entire time in that barrel since the day he reported her as a runaway.
No wonder he told her, "Stop looking and come home."
Mm-hmm.
I know where she is.
She's in our shed, Brenda. Fucking creepy. Now, I'm going to read you this jailhouse phone call because I think it just utterly encompasses Brenda and Dennis's...
Let me sit back.
Yes. Their relationship, even to this day. Get comfortable.
Hold on. Private feet. All right. Go.
Brenda, how was the letter that you wrote so convincing about the cemetery? Dennis, that was more bullshit for them, and I thought it would make you feel better. But you haven't felt better. You've only been bitching about how you wanted her right here with you in a can sitting on the shelf. I thought maybe if you thought she was buried properly with respect, then maybe you say, okay, that's enough. But no. Brenda, I don't want you to be mad. Dennis, at least you'll have her in a tin jar on a shelf. Brenda. She's just crying in the background. Dennis. So now here I am. Now you know I'm a rotten steak of a son of a bitch. Brenda. Nothing changes. I still love you, Denny. Did you hear me? Dennis. Yes, I heard you. It's going to be over, baby. Bye-bye.
Okay, so. Real quick. Why is Brenda not asking why?
Because she thinks it's an accident. She is still believing the very first story that this is all Aundria's fault. Aundria was lying and was like, I'm going to run away. And if you don't let me, I'm going to tell everyone you molested me. And he got mad and hit her.
There's so many other whys though.
Mm-hmm.
And hows. Why are you not asking more questions?
Because she wasn't allowed to ask questions while they were married. Because he had all the control. That's my opinion.
I mean, true. And she said, I don't want you to be mad. So
that pissed me off.
already know she's even with him behind bars, she's still in fear.
And she's people pleasing. Like fucking crazy.
Somebody help her. She's dancing like an abused wife.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's been many decades since Aundria had been buried, so there wasn't much to examine except for a pile of bones. But they were able to do a DNA test, and it did confirm that it was Aundria Michelle Bowman. or, like we should address her from now on, Alexis Badger, her biological name, because these people don't deserve her to have the name that they chose for her at all. Now, while Dennis was incarcerated, he ended up admitting that when he was stationed in San Diego prior to him and Brenda getting married, he sexually assaulted a woman. He also admitted that shortly after they were married, he had sexually assaulted 2 more women in San Diego, and then in the early 80s, he had sexually assaulted another woman in a trailer park. Dennis was questioned about the kidnapping and assault of Meta McLeod when she was 6 years old, but Dennis said he had nothing to do with that crime. Again, I call bullshit. I think he's just not going to admit to
Weird thing to, like, you confess to all these other things, but
He will not confess to being a predator, like a pedophile. I think that's his line. He's like, nope, I can't say that I'm a pedophile.
Okay, so that is strategic because he's behind bars. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, along with many of you, you're, like I just said, you're all probably screaming bullshit, like we just said. I don't think that Dennis is willing to admit that he's attracted to children. I think he's really ashamed of that. And he should be ashamed of it.
As everyone, anyone.
Absolutely. And he's never going to admit that he ever sexually assaulted Alexis or any other child. Now, many people believe that Kathleen Doyle was not Dennis's first murder victim. The investigators of that case said that the brutality of her murder points to somebody who had done this before. But unfortunately, with Dennis not confessing to any more murders, the extent of his criminal history is going to just have to remain a mystery.
Wow.
In my opinion, though, like, I don't think he's ever going to confess to another murder because he doesn't want to lose Brenda. Even though, in my opinion, I don't think he will ever lose Brenda. I think he could chop a baby in half right in front of her and she would still be completely devoted to him. But I just don't think he's willing to take that chance. He's like, I mean, she's forgiven me so many times. Like, how can I know that the next time is going to be the one that breaks the camel's back kind of thing?
Because he knows that she also has a point of no return.
Or at least he thinks she does. I don't think she does. I don't think she has a point of no return.
You know,
because I'm like, wouldn't your point of no return been you finding out that he actually murdered and chopped up your fucking daughter's body? And he chopped it up and put her in a barrel and buried her and had so little remorse that you didn't realize it for years. You didn't pick up on.
Well, you know, she didn't really care either about her. Because you had said, like, she would say that shit, like, listen to what this kid did today or whatever. Not even saying, like, our daughter or I don't know.
Yeah.
Just like,
And just not having the tact to, I don't know, not talk about your kid in front of other people. Like
I think that he may also not want to confess to this stuff. You're right about the whole, like, he's afraid to lose her. I think she does have a point of no return where she would leave him. And I think it gets closer or more likely or more possible the longer she's away from him physically.
I would hope so, but she visits him all the time. They have phone calls all the fucking time, even to this day.
Well, maybe I'm wrong then. I just know the more distance and the less communication you have with an abuser, the more clearly you see the full picture.
Yeah. Now, Dennis pled no contest to second-degree murder of Aundria Bowman, and on February 7th, 2022, he was sentenced. The judge said, quote, I've been in this business for 40 years almost. I've prosecuted cold cases and cold case murders. I don't think I've ever read anything this devastating.
She's a child.
Dennis received a life sentence. At the end of his sentence hearing, it was announced that he was going to be shipped off to Virginia.
Yeah.
They did not want him to have any control in his murder cases, especially when it came to Aundria. And so they said, I'm sorry. We didn't really try. We just want you to go to Virginia because we want to have the last laugh and we want you to sit on a cactus, you piece of shit.
They said this final kick in the teeth, that's for Aundria.
Yes. Now, after the sentencing hearing, Kathy Turkania, the biological mom, she was taken into a room and authorities had informed her that Brenda had had Aundria's remains cremated and had decided to split Aundria's remains with Kathy. Now, when Kathy heard this, she broke down.
Y'all been fucking with Kathy.
She was livid. She was angry. She was sad. She was crying. And she felt like this was a complete injustice for Aundria all over again. She said Dennis had chopped her body up in real life, and now here Brenda is fucking chopping her body up after death. And she even asked him, so what is it? Like, I have the top half and she has the bottom half? Like,
yeah,
what the fuck? And these poor guys, they have no idea what to do. You know, like, there's nothing they can do in this situation. So they're just like...
Who has the right to her, though? I guess it would be,
her adopted mom.
But even after all the abuse and stuff that came out, like...
Oh, but it wasn't they have nothing on Brenda. They just have Brenda not fucking doing anything.
And that should be abuse.
Mm-hmm. So, oh God, she was so pissed. And she was like, of course I want them. And she takes them and they feel sorry for her, right? But she walks out of the room and Meta McLeod is standing right there and she's holding up this pink gift bag and she goes, want to guess what's in here? And she says that to Meta and Meta goes, no. And she goes, yep, half of her.
Mm-hmm. That's so disrespectful. That's just not Kathy, but yeah. That's
Brenda.
Disrespectful.
Yeah. On the note, because Brenda left a note with the ashes and she said, I'm sharing equally with you because you were her mother first. I pray God can help you find some peace with all of this.
No. She was her mother, period.
Mm-hmm.
And you were a shitty supervisor. That's all you were.
Without her, without Kathy Turkania, the biological mom coming into this fucking picture, without her, Aundria would still be a fucking missing person and buried in their goddamn backyard.
There would be no ashes. There would be nothing.
There would be no ashes. You don't deserve shit. You let your husband control this entire situation. You could have seen all of these red goddamn flags. People pointed out these red flags for you for years, and you just sat there and let your daughter go, quote, missing.
Yeah, so Brenda, with the utmost disrespect, fuck you. Fuck you. Like, with all due disrespect, fuck you.
Fuck you. Mm-hmm. Now, Kathy's not done because I fucking love her.
Can we give you an award? An honorary Deadly Faith podcast.
Can you come on the podcast?
Award. That's what we're giving you today.
I know. Now, Kathy is currently petitioning to have Brenda's rights to Aundria's remains relinquished.
Where do I sign?
In an article I will sign anything. In an article I read online, allegedly Brenda said she has scattered her ashes in an unknown cemetery. Again, like I've said so many times in this episode.
No way.
I call fucking bullshit. She begged and pleaded Dennis to give her the body. She wanted her urn at home on the shelf. There is no way after all these years she just sprinkled her in some random fucking cemetery. Like, no, she has the ashes. Mm-hmm. Now, on a phone call to Dennis, Brenda said, quote, how's she going to fight it? Any judge in the whole world would turn around and say, you're lucky you're getting what you're getting because she's sharing with you, end quote. Then Dennis has the fucking audacity to say, quote, remember, she threw her away, end quote. When I tell you I came out of my fucking chair.
She's coming out of the chair right now, like actively.
I said threw her away? Who threw her away? You chopped up her fucking body and murdered her and buried her in 2 different backyards, you motherfucker. Who threw her away? You did, you son of a bitch.
I feel some listeners screaming and clenching their fists around the wheel of their car. Yes. I'm going to have to ask you to unclench.
Yes.
For safety reasons. But also, I don't even have any words.
You don't have words.
Because we all understand the universal truth. It's like he still thinks that he wins. But we know that the truth is that Aundria wins and that Kathy wins and that Meta wins and that all these other people, they come out of this on top. And we understand that Kathy was not persuaded, but guilt-tripped.
Yeah.
Into giving her up for adoption.
She was coerced.
She had a loving 9 months with her and 9 months carrying her.
Mm-hmm.
And she loved her.
She was more of a parent in those 9 months than Brenda and Dennis were the entire time they ever had Aundria. And
she's
then
more a parent as a child that was having a child, because she was still a kid when she had her. The emotional maturity. Good on you.
And then when Kathy came back into the story, when she finds out her daughter is missing, she was a parent 10 times over. 12,000 people could have been in their lifetime. And she's still, to this day, she is still continuing to fight for victims that Dennis has harmed or even murdered in the past. Like, she's like, I don't think we're done. And she's going to continue. And I tell you, she's got a fire under her ass that I'm just like, I love you.
Well, listen, if she ever hears this, she probably won't. But
she might. She might.
If you ever do, if there's anything that our podcast can do,
absolutely,
to assist, we would love to help.
We are Alexis all the way. She has our heart. You have our heart. And I want you guys to be active with this case, because yes, we have closure in that sense, but Kathy's not done fighting.
It's not enough though. There's still more.
No.
More work to be done.
And she has a Facebook page, Find Aundria Bowman. Like, it's still active. We will link it below. Please go and follow it. She posts stuff all the time. I'm consistently watching it. She posted a picture of Brenda at work the other day.
Okay.
And apparently Brenda works at Walgreens, and she has this just like,
oh God,
she's beaten down look on her face. I swear. And then she put Brenda and Dennis beside each other, and they look almost the same. It's kind of like, whoa, wow, it's kind of weird.
Wow.
But please go follow that.
Oh my God, they do.
See? She found it.
I just followed the page.
Yes, please go follow it. I'm going to share this.
Brenda looks like a bitch. Sorry.
She does.
They both look like bitch-ass motherfuckers.
But just please follow that page. Please go watch it on Netflix. Please know that Kathy did not receive a penny from the documentary on Netflix. Okay? She did not receive a penny. Now,
I would like for her to.
I would like her to earn money from the documentary. I think she deserves to earn money. But also, I kind of like that she didn't, because there are so many people that would point to that, us not being part of that group. But there are people that would point to that and be like, oh, you're just profiting off your dead daughter's story. And that is not her mission. And that was never her mission from day one. And it still isn't. And so, does she deserve to write about her story? Absolutely. Like, if she wants to write a book, girl, like, fucking do it. Good God. Like, because this was only a 2-part documentary on Netflix, but I highly suggest going and watching it, because hearing Kathy tell these stories, getting to hear the jailhouse phone calls and stuff, it brings it home in a way that nothing else can. So,
Alexis is so smiley.
I know.
So smiley. Look at that. Beautiful hair. I tell you.
Go check out our Instagram. We'll have pictures of her from last week and this week's show. But that is the case of Aundria Bowman, or like we like to call her, Alexis Badger.
Rightfully so.
Hope you guys like that one. But let's take a hard right turn into our palate cleansers.
Yeah.
I have one from tonight at dinner. Do you want me to tell it? It's quite hilarious. We're sitting in this restaurant, very public restaurant, and it's all quiet. And all of a sudden, my 5-year-old goes, hey, and she's on the other side of the table. Okay. She goes, hey, Dad. He goes, yeah. She goes, you know what a little boy said in pre-K last year? And he said, what? And she goes, penis.
Way to. Yeah. Excellent.
I laughed so hard. And I was like, thankfully, there was not people like, it's like a 2-room restaurant. And so like, they could still hear us on the other side. And I don't know if anyone heard us, but there was nobody in the direct room that we were in. So I was like, well.
The round table.
I started laughing and I was like, well, that's my palate cleanser for tonight.
That's good. All right. The good news.
The
for
Good
today.
News Network.
The gospel. 61 years ago today, the second and often considered the best film starring James Bond was released as From Russia with Love. In the film, Bond played by Sean Connery, is sent to assist in the defection of Soviet consulate clerk Tatiana Romanova in Turkey. The film was a critical and commercial success, grossing $78 million worldwide.
Jesus Christ. I wish I had 1 million.
The critics at the time found the film to be nonsensical, illogical, mad.
What?
And absolutely delightful.
Okay. That's a way to describe it.
So yeah, 61 years ago today. Wow.
Ooh.
That's wild.
Yeah,
Go
I like
watch
that.
Sean Connery.
Before we end this episode, I wanted to jump in here real quick and tell you guys about a fun little thing that's happening. If not, it probably already happened by the time this came out, is my book is released or releasing very soon. I think it's already released by the time this comes out. It comes out November 12th. It's called Leaving the Sanctuary. It is discovering life beyond the boundaries of religion. It is my story of deconstruction and coming out. I had such a fun time writing it. It is a beautiful book, and it's available over on Amazon right now. You can get it on Kindle or you can get it on paperback. It will be coming out on Audible, but that's going to take a little bit longer. I'm hiring a narrator to read it for me because it's just easier. But I'll let you guys know when it's available. So if you would like to support me, I would love for you to go over and get the book and let me know what you think. Leave me a review. I love you guys. Anyways.
So excited for Lacey.
I know, me
this
too.
is such a big success for you.
I'm so
very
pumped.
proud.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for us to all support you in this. So,
Aw, thank you.
yes.
Anyways, that's everything, guys. So that's the show, and we will see you next week. And we got another 2-parter coming at you. So you guys said you liked this and you want 2-parters, so we're giving you some. Here you go.
And with that, please stay safe, stay skeptical,
And steer clear of the cultish carousel.
We interrupt this episode with a message from our sponsor. If you've ever deconstructed your faith, you know it's not easy. But just imagine if you could have people to guide you through the process.
That's right. People like Jim Palmer, Kristen Dumez, author of Jesus and John Wayne, Jennifer Knapp, Brad Jerzak, Brian Zond, Paul Young, author of The Shack, and more. Well, if you head over to choiracademy.com and register for Square 2 using the promo code LOLA, you'll get 10% off the regular registration cost of this awesome course and community just for being a fan of our show.
All links can be found in the show notes. Again, that's code LOLA, LOLA, for 10% off the Square 2 course.
Also, heathens, if you're enjoying the show so far, please remember to subscribe wherever you're listening, leave us a review, and be nice to yourself today. Buy yourself something nice. Treat yourself. Go to our merch store on Bonfire. The link is on the Instagram bio. Also, join our Patreon if you want to be part of the Deadly Faith Secret Society. We've also got the Potty Podcast over there where we shoot the shit and you can talk to us about whatever. Deadly Faith is brought to you by Choircast Network. It's produced by Lacey Bean and Lola Robbins and audio engineered by Eric Howell. Thanks for listening.